Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I made this mini stock pot. It is so cute and inexpensive and super simple. As always, I will have the complete list of all the supplies I used in the info box below. But essentially the pots are these little end caps that you use for plumbing, probably for the kitchen or bathroom, laundromats, and so on and so forth. But the size that I chose for this project is a 1 1/4. I started by sanding the piece to get rid of any oil or dirt or any little imperfections that needed to be taken care of. And I did the same thing with the cap. This is the same thing except it's a different shape cap. You will find all of these in the same area in the plumbing section. Once I was done with the sanding, I cleaned it up so that I could get rid of all the dust. And using one of these self-adhesive stencils, what I did is I drew out a circle to cover the top of what's going to be the lid of our pot. And I carefully peeled it back and placed it on the top part of our lid. And I cleaned the edges off with a cutter. With a permanent marker, I drew some tiny designs on the side. I did the same thing for the pot. When I was done, it looked like this. Alright, using a styrofoam square that I'm recycling, I taped it up with regular masking tape. And then I covered the inside of our lid with some tape because I didn't want any of the acid to touch this area. Folding the tape onto itself so that you can accomplish a double-sided tape type deal, I attached it to the inside of the lid. And this way I was able to attach our lid on styrofoam square. So using ferric chloride acid, we are going to etch our copper components. Just make sure that you read all the instructions and follow all the warning label procedures that you have to take care of, like using gloves and protective eyewear and all that good stuff, because even though this is to etch copper, you never know, and it does stain, so just be very careful. Okay, so we're going to put this on the side and we're going to let it sit there for about an hour or two. I wanted to show you how I made these tiny little pots because I thought they were so cute. Using these stickers that you rub on, I attached this design onto one of the little pots. Alright, so for the second little pot, the tiny pot, I got a label and I punched out a star and placed it on top of one of the lids that we're going to use for the tiny pots. Then I added some dots just to give it a little more flair. For the pot itself, I wanted to give it a bit of a different look. So what I did is I just punched out a circle and then I went ahead and punched out a star around the circle just to give it more design, a more eclectic look, let's say. And then I just added some dots so that it would match the lid. And I did the same thing. I poured some acid and I'm going to let it sit there for a couple hours. And to check the depth of the etching, you can do this with a toothpick. Once you feel like it's deep enough, that's when you can remove your copper. Oh my gosh, isn't this beautiful? Look at the etching. Amazing, isn't it? Oh my gosh, I love this so much. To neutralize the acid, you need some baking soda. Now, before you dispose of this acid, you have to pour a whole bunch of baking soda down the drain and then pour the acid. But I myself would rather all of us take it to a recycling place, and they should know what to do with that. Obviously, that's what they deal with. So instead of pouring it down your pipes, because you never know, it might get stuck in the middle of the pipe and then, erode all of your copper tubing. And I don't want you guys to be mad at me. But you can also put it in a different container and reuse it. It will lose its potency after so many times you've used it. But do not pour it back into the container. I've seen other people do that, and I think it's counterproductive because you're actually pouring in acid that's not strong enough anymore. So just be careful, make sure that the kids are away from it, any animals and pets and all that good stuff, away from the acid. To clean our pots, we can use a wire brush, some sandpaper, or a Dremel with a wire brush. It's up to you, but either one works. For the handles, I twisted 22 gauge copper wire and I twisted it to make it look like a mini braid. Now, using the flat nose pliers as my guide, I folded the wire onto itself to make a square handle. Then I welded the handles to the pot on each side. Just make sure that you're careful when you do this, like wearing protective eyewear, do welding in a well-ventilated room, and just making sure you have water available and all the good stuff that comes along with when you're using something like a torch. For this handle, since we're going to use it for the lid, I folded the edges of the wire towards the outside to make it look more real. And then I proceeded to weld it. Using a little grinding stone, I just cleaned up all the little welding areas, any bumps that I didn't like, just to make it more smooth and so that it looks nice and clean. Now for these little pots, I decided to glue the little handles. So I just made a handle that looks kind of like a teardrop or a circle. And then I glued it on there with some clear glue. I used a diamond glaze. And for the other tiny little pot, I used like a square shaped handle. So to give it a rustic look, like from the back in the day where they used to make the pots out of copper and that they would cover it with aluminum. So I just gave it 2 coats of this silver acrylic paint, and I painted all the pots and lids this silver color. Now to give it a vintage, a used look, I gave it a black wash, and that brings out the design and it makes it look like someone's been using it for years. For the bottom, I used undiluted acrylic paint. And that's just to make it seem like whoever used it has been using it over and over again. Final touch, I just painted the handles black. You let them dry, and there you go. And look at how cute it looks. It has like a burnt side on the front of it right there. It looks like it's been through a lot of use. And then I made a little cutting board that looks like a fish, a little rag here, a little see-through bowl, because we are going to make some clam chowder or some shrimp soup, or I don't know, something with seafood. So that's why I made this little fish cutting board. But if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any comments, don't forget to subscribe. Also check out my Instagram for close-up pictures of all my projects. Thank you, have a good one, and see you next time. Bye.